Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Civivi Stormhowl. Let's go ahead and clear up a little bit of confusion, not with everybody, but some people. You might be looking at this blade going, what the heck is that? This is actual Sanmai style Damascus. What is Sanmai? Basically what we've got here is one composition forming a jacket around a core. If you look on the spine, the darker part is the core, and you can see that core coming out here and creating the edge. So what is Civivi's Damascus? It's a 10CR15 and 9CR18 combination. The 10CR15 is creating the core. What is that? It's apparently the equivalent of VG10, which is a lot of Sanmai, blades are made with a VG10 core. So this is pretty good stuff. What's the difference between the Sanmai style 10CR15 and 9CR18 combination? If I'm getting those numbers and codes correctly, but this is a lot to remember. In terms of performance, like the other styles of Damascus that Civivi puts out, where it's like just layered, you're essentially going to have like roughly the same level of performance if we're comparing the exact same blade geometry. If it does differ, it's not by much. For the most part, what you're getting here is a blade that performs just fine, at least as well as VG10, and looks really, really cool. I've heard reports that as far as the reflectivity and the contrast goes, like that's varying. This seems to be pretty nice stuff. So that's what you're looking at here. This is the more expensive version of the knife. It's still really not all that expensive, but the base version of the knife comes in Nitro V and is about $20 less expensive. These are available right now, at least at the moment I'm recording this. So I will link this stuff right down below in the description. You can check it out if you want. It does come in a bunch of different colors and configurations. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that is entirely up to you. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. And thank you so much to Civivi for sending this knife in for me to take a look at. Let's go ahead and measure this knife. It was a lot. I can't remember if I doubled up on some of the things I was saying. The overall length here, 7.5 inches for the Stormhowl. Blade length is about 3 1/4. Cutting edge is about 3 1/8. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. So it's much closer to the size of the AD 20.5. This is one of those knives where, in this form at least, it is so loud aesthetically that it's sort of, the presentation of it is that of a larger knife. And then it's not until you lay it down, up against something like the AD 20.5 that you realize it's not a small knife, it's just not huge. Let's go ahead and put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. You can see here, once again, much closer to the size of the Para 3, though it's worth pointing out it has a much more cutting edge, and truthfully, just a hair shorter than the PM2, despite being a much shorter knife. Last but not least, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Hogue Deca. All right, so how's the action on this knife? It's pretty good. It's about what you'd expect from Civivi's, button locks. You push the button and it drops. No drag or anything like that. You flip it and it flips. It's got enough of a lockup to survive a light triple tap, which is all the more I'm going to do on this channel. That's good enough for me. There is no blade play up, down, left, or right, and no amount of, normal force on the spine. Just pushing it, not impact, just regular force is disengaging it, so that's good. Yeah, it's exactly what you want it to do, what you want it to be. There's really nothing to complain about here. There's only one means of deployment, and that is the flipper tab, and that thing works just fine. I honestly feel like because of it's the plunge lock creating the detent, and that's nowhere near as satisfying as like a well done, detent ball. So because of the shape of the flipper tab and the fact that the blade isn't super heavy, there's not like this significant like satisfaction push buttoning it. I feel like light switching it is a bit better, but both ways work just fine. You can see there the standard push button. It's a little more satisfying like light switching it, but it's fine. I have no complaints. Let's do carry profile thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's just slightly thinner. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. Honestly, in and out of the pocket, this thing was great. There's some texturing, but that really didn't bother me. The closed length is almost exactly the same as the Para 3. It's just not quite as tall, given that there's a bump on the Para 3. It's way smaller and shorter than the PM2. Materials, like I said, for the blade, in this case, we have the Sanmai Style 10CR15, 9CR18 combination here, or Nitro V, probably going to weigh about the same. And then we have textured aluminum, which is very, very cool. Outside of that, those are literally the only two materials. So weight on this guy, and by the way, it doesn't have any additional milling, though it doesn't really need it. Aluminum's pretty lightweight as it is. 3.03 ounces, which is a darn good amount of weight considering how much blade you're getting. I have no issue with that. I mean, actually, no, I'm sorry. Oh, no, it went back. That's borderline. On this channel, anything under 3 ounces is considered ultra lightweight. At that point, it's trivial to me. Any less, I mean, I'm not hiking and min-maxing, so whatever. 3 ounces is really great. I don't have a problem with that at all. And this thing really disappears in the pocket. So let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. If they're handy, which they kind of are, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in this section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. So as is the case with pretty much every other Civivi I've handled, we have T8 body screws and a T8 pivot, and we have T6 pocket clip screws. There's also a mounting position for the pocket clip on the other side for lefties, so that's great. Very easy to take apart and put back together, maintain all of that. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and, what would be great is if I had these tools ready. The blade stock thickness, which is almost certainly going to be on the thin side. What is this? What am I saying? 110 thousandths? Less than that. Oh, just shy. 99.5 thousandths is thin blade. That's what Civivi does. Meat and potatoes time. I think it's pretty easy to point out that what's creating the character in this knife is the combination of the interesting texture pattern on the aluminum and the Sanmai style Damascus, which again is an actual, I would say a budget performance Damascus. Is there a major difference between this and something like Damacor or Damasteel? Yeah. Maybe, when we're comparing to Damasteel, I don't know if the edge retention in that department is going to be all that different, right? But as far as like the properties, the other properties, how they act in certain environments, there's probably a little bit more there. Damasteel is a more premium product. Those are combinations of powder form steels, right? But how it translates to utility in various environments, I don't really know. But I know that that's a much more expensive material to make. So people who are buying more expensive knives, even if the performance is somewhat similar, they don't want this on their expensive knives. They want their Damasteel, right? Damacor is a superior product, especially when it has the Vanax core. That's a totally different beast. But is there a difference between this and the garbage you get on Amazon for 25 bucks? Absolutely. If you are buying Damascus off of Amazon for $25, that is Poo-Poo Town Supreme. You are buying aluminum and sun-baked aluminum that has been made into a crappy Damascus pattern, and it's just like cutting with old spoons. It's not, you're not buying anything there. But hey, don't let me rain on your parade. If you like how it looks and that's what you got to spend, then, go ahead. But just so you know, yes, there is a difference. Yes, there is a reason to spend a little bit more and get something like this. On top of that, the pattern is very crisp. This is nice because Civivi's old Damascus, in my opinion, also looked like Poo-Poo Town. It was terrible. I don't know why. I mean, it looked like Oreo milk. It was so bad. This is crisp and clean. It looks good. I like that Civivi has taken it up a notch. Still doesn't look quite as good as some of the some of the patterns that I see on obviously some of the more premium knives with the Damasteel and the Damacor stuff like that. But it's totally acceptable at this price point. Like I'm very impressed with it. I think it looks great. But that's what's creating the character here. And I think a lot of people will be quick to point out, if you compare it with the standard version of the knife, it's just another Civivi button lock. And you're right. Outside of the fact that it's got textured aluminum. This is cool. Why? Who cares? I'll tell you why it's cool, because up until this point, for the most part, all I've seen, and it's not just with Civivi, it's with a lot of companies, like 99% of their aluminum handled knives are just plain. You can have red, you can have blue, you can have green, you can have yellow. Well, I don't see a lot of yellow, but I see the first three primary colors. Great. Aluminum can be textured, obviously, and companies are just almost flat out unwilling to do it. This is awesome. Civivi, I can promise you, I mean, obviously there's going to be people who continue to prefer a smooth aluminum handle, and that's fine. Cater to both. People will love the texture patterns, definitely, and it adds some much needed character to a lot of bland designs, right? So I like that. I think that's really cool. I'm going to highlight that. I also think the pattern itself is cool. It's like 3 thin lines and then a wide sort of, indentation or fuller or whatever you want to call that. It's cool. And it does create meaningful traction. Not so much that I noticed it tearing up my pocket at all. If there is additional friction, it's so minor. I think that's great. Different patterns, do some diamond patterns, do some frag patterns. People are into that. That adds a lot of extra visual appeal to people. And while a lot of your customers, obviously, I don't have to tell Civivi this, a lot of your customers are 100% hardcore users, hashtag use your crap, whatever, need to take pictures of their dirty knife right beside their lawnmower so everybody knows they're using it kind of people. I'm kidding, calm down, you know who you are. But a lot of your customers are buying these things and they're taking them out and using them, right? But a lot of your customers are also, like the people who are interested in this stuff and willing to pay more money than what's at the Walmart counter, they're buying it for the aesthetics as well. And so evolving and offering some texture patterns is really going to tickle the fancies of a lot of people, mine included. As a knife enthusiast, I can tell you that somebody who has a fairly limited budget but is just absolutely bombarded on Instagram, YouTube, various whatever social media platforms, they're bombarded by these absolutely bizarre and crazy exotic materials and combinations of aesthetics, right? They might want that, but obviously not be able to afford it. This, in a lot of ways, this does capture the look of some of those really cool multi-hundred or in some cases multi-$1,000 knives. Not exactly, but it captures a little bit of that essence, and it allows people with a limited budget to kind of explore that and just have something and enjoy a piece of that. And I think that's really, really cool. I love that they're offering these combinations alongside a more plain, just straightforward utilitarian aesthetic. It's cool. I don't think there's a downside to this as long as they don't exclusively offer one side or the other. I think this is great. I think this is proof that Civivi knows who's buying their knives. But anyways, this long speech to conclude it, please make more texture aluminum. Texture aluminum more. Yes, please. Good. Good stuff. All right. As far as ergonomic goes, it's about what you'd expect. It's pretty good. I don't really have a complaint outside of the pocket clip, which is the same. Just shave that bill down. All right. They're clearly not going to do it at this point. I'm going to keep bringing it up, but they're clearly not going to do it. Index finger position, you can choke up a little bit. Just be really careful because you're right beside that edge. The jimping does it. My voice is cracking. I'm still getting over this cold. You got a nice little spot here, whether you keep your index finger back here in the standard position or you choke up just a little bit. Nice little bit of jimping there. Nice thin clip point style blade, very thin behind the edge. And can you feel this pattern? I'm going to be honest with you, no. It looks like it's got depth. It looks like you would be able to feel it, Only slightly if I run my fingernail across it, but not really. The edge is nice and thin, fully flat ground. No sharp edges up here, which I don't like that. Some people want it, but Civivi does just about the best factory edge that you could want at this territory. And honestly, they're a step ahead of a few companies who are making knives in the multi-$100 territory. But yeah, Civivi, in my opinion, has the best factory edge in this department, in this price territory by far. So really, the blade's great. You have a little bit, I say fully flat ground. There actually is a little bit of a flat right here. You can see that. But it is a flat ground blade and it's very high. So anyways, the taper does come down to a nice thin edge and you're going to notice that. when you are using your knife for knife tasks, which would be cutting. So if you cut with this knife and you cut materials that a knife is supposed to cut, this knife will perform very well. Also, if you poke things that a knife is supposed to cut, this knife will poke very well. Sounds like a joke, but we still got, like Grandpa said, knives are screwdrivers kind of people. Oh, sorry. That's always a wet canoe paddle to the face. How dare you? My grandfather was a smart man. That's fine. I'm sure he was, you know, but hey, it's time we accept it. All right. You got screwdrivers. You got pocket knives. One of them's for screwing and one of them is for cutting and poking. All right. You also have a pry bar and that thing's for prying. This isn't for either of those things. Just like a screwdriver's not for cutting. It's, you know, it's just so you know. So anyways, moving on. We got a couple of standoffs back here. We do have a little lanyard bar. That's great. Like I said, we got left and right ambi positions for the pocket clip. If you are left-handed, you will be experiencing this knife essentially exactly the same way as a right-handed person, except you'll be using your index finger to disengage the lock, which is fine. If you decide to choke up, I don't think there's a natural position where you're going to choke up and squeak, because you're not going to do that. It's right on top of the flipper tab. That's super uncomfortable. I just don't see that working for a right or left-handed person. That's just not what that's. This is a single knuckle sort of very delicate precision type, almost carving task choke up position. So you're not going to be at risk. My point is you're not going to be at risk, left-handed people, for putting this pad of your finger down on that button and disengaging it. It's just not. You have to go so far out of your way to do that. Right-handed people, your grip doesn't land naturally on that button, so you're not going to disengage it either. The only time it's going to disengage is if you take a ridiculous swing at the back of the spine, and we all know that doesn't prove anything. So there's no real worries there, right? Just use your tools appropriately and you should be good to go. Anyways, lockup, like I said, no blade play up, down, left, or right. Civivi does a good button lock. No button stick, no pivot lash, smooth and consistent in here. And for it being a plunge lock detent, it's pretty good. Oh, no movement though. No detent lash, which we usually get. Detent lash, by the way, is when the blade is in the closed position, and by moving the flipper tab up and down, you can feel it kind of moving a little bit. This doesn't really hurt it, but it's annoying, and it makes enthusiasts feel like we got a superior product. Truthfully, it's a good sign that the manufacturer is paying attention to tight tolerances and getting things tuned in properly before they put them on the shelves. The centering also is spot on. Hasn't changed since I got it. I think we're good to go there. The Storm Howl, super epic name. The version you're looking at here, $95. Do I think that's fair? Abso-freaking-lutely I do. I don't know why I said that. Like it was like a catchphrase on this channel. No. Yeah, $95 for this, I think is great. If you like this VG10, well, 10CR 15 MOV is the equivalent of VG10. It's apparently exactly the same composition or very, very close, right? So if you like the look of if you like the look of Sanmai Damascus, a lot of people, the reason I keep stumbling over that is because for a long time I thought Sanmai exclusively was made with VG10, and it's not. Sanmai is a style, right? So it can be any jacket, any core. But a lot of Sanmai blades, a lot of popular Sanmai blades are a VG10 core and then something else for the jacket, right? So this is Sanmai style. If you like that aesthetic, go for this. If you don't and you want the cheaper one, it's in Nitro V, which is fine, and it's $74, which on this channel makes it a budget knife. So, on this channel, knives that I recommend and that I like, they go in my, recommended knives playlist, but the ones that are under $75 go in the cheap knives I like playlist. I'm putting this knife in that playlist, not because this particular version you're looking at right now is under $75, but the base version of this knife is. So it's going to go in both playlists. If you like this knife, pick it up. I think it's excellent. That's going to be pretty much it today, guys. Like I said, links for this guy in all its forms down in the description. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.